We do not oppose Democrats because we are on the same side as Republicans. We oppose Democrats because Democrats are on the same side as Republicans. Our government is a corporate duopoly, a corporate dictatorship. What does this mean? Both parties are captured by the same class of people. Until we understand this simple fact, we are hopelessly lost. Nothing will make sense. We will look at individual phenomena like, for example, this liberal did with one congressional bill.
How do you define same team here? You mean being representatives in the United States? How is one party voting for Israel assistance and one party voting against Israel assistance, both part of the same team for Israel assistance?
To draw a broad conclusion without assimilating other types of information about our world to form a cohesive picture.
This is how a bill becomes a law. A special interest hires some lobbyists. Those lobbyists collect campaign contributions, offer jobs, and then write the laws that Congress then passes to help those same special interests. This happens every day on every single issue with politicians of both parties.
Most people have zero class analysis in their politics. Right now, people are very caught up in the spectacle of an election cycle. People want to know who to vote for. Our position on the left, the actual anti-capitalist left, is that voting in federal elections is something like a 10th order of importance. To cite one Princeton study, which I provided a link to in the description, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near-zero impact upon public policy. 70% of the bottom income earners in the United States are politically disenfranchised. Another study out of Stanford concluded that only 28% of Americans surveyed think that their representatives actually paid substantial attention to the general public's views. Instead, 70% of respondents perceive that elected officials pay substantially more attention to the preferences of campaign donors and economic elites than they do to the general public. Yes, capitalists control the government. You live in a plutocracy where wealth and power dictate government policy. As John Dewey put it in the 1920s, politics is the shadow cast by big business onto the public. As long as politics is the shadow of big business, the attenuation of the shadow will not change the substance. In what meaningful sense can we call the United States a democracy? Are you voting? This question presumes that we vote to begin with. I think that it's incorrect. I think it gives us too much unearned credit while also lending credibility to the political status quo. I find it unsettling to even suggest that we vote in America. It's incredibly naive to think that you actually voted for the president. I know that it looks like we vote. We certainly go to the ballot box and fill out a ballot. But upon further investigation, I contend that you and I played no meaningful role in this voting process. The decisions were already made. Voting is ultimately an illusion. So I believe we need to find a new term that accurately describes what materially takes place in a United States presidential election. I believe Noam Chomsky said it best. We don't vote, we ratify. We ratify decisions already made by the business class.
The United States is basically a one-party state. The business party has two factions called Democrats and Republicans.
The real question is, why don't we have a political democracy in the United States? Politicians are public servants. They are answerable to the public, not the other way around. Pointing out the contours, shapes, principles, values, and characteristics of our current political economy is not tacit approval of one party over another. We are merely stating the fundamental problem. And if we don't organize around the fundamental problem, then we cannot possibly organize the fundamental solution. If we don't identify the problem, we cannot identify a solution. Voting in a presidential election, or as I would call ratifying, is not a meaningful form of democracy and is not really essential to solving the problems of our society. I maintain that in the political economy of capitalism, real power is derived from the economy alone, first and foremost. It is economic power which buys political power. Real change comes from recapturing the productive forces of our society so that they are under democratic control. Do we honestly expect a political democracy to flow from economic fascism? Our government is captured by special interests which hire lobbyists to write laws ultimately passed by Congress that subsidize those special interests' profits with taxpayer money. It's a vicious circle. It's a flywheel by which either aspect serves as momentum for the other. Why do I feel the need to say this? Because most people don't acknowledge this, and educating the working class is absolutely vital to the movement. The only reason Trump 2.0 is still relevant, even after losing an election, forcing an insurrection, and being convicted as a felon, is because of the Democratic Party, its ineptitude, its impotence, its flowery rhetoric, its feigning moral opposition while tacitly approving conservative interests. A wolf in sheep's clothing is still a wolf. One can even make a compelling argument that Democrats are even more dangerous to democracy because of their Machiavellian-like insidiousness. The fact that they claim to be what they are not. I am not discouraging you to vote. I only want you to understand the class-based society that you live in. For most people, voting is the extent of their activism.
That's not activism.
In reality, it's a minor, minuscule action with a statistically non-significant impact on public policy. Transcendental qualitative change only arises from many innumerable, seemingly unnoticeable quantitative changes. Apart
from a mutiny in the armed forces, organizing severe supply chain disruptions to force a political crisis.
Nixon ordered Cambodian genocide. Sent cruise missiles to Sudan, people died. Gave the orders to do drone strikes.